Welcome, everybody, to this week's episode. We really appreciate you joining us. This podcast really shows us how we can all learn, live, and thrive off of each other. By sharing our knowledge through our conversations, we will impart some knowledge whilst learning ourselves how to progress even further. Here is your host.
Hello and welcome to another edition of Pull Up A Sandbag with Joel. Hi, my name's Joel O'Connor, founder and CEO of the Transformer Company, and I help veterans, veteran business owners and those who support veterans become bigger, better and bolder versions of themselves. And I do this in three key areas: health, wealth and mindset. And today, Pull Up A Sandbag with Joel, we're going to be looking at the week that was, the news of over the last week. And then we're going to move on to my favourite part of the podcast, Standing on the Shoulder of Giants, where each episode I look to interview people who I've worked with, people who I consider fabulous at what they do, and many of those who have transitioned from being in the military to civilian life. And then finally, we look at a few health, wealth and mindset tips that I put together each episode to help you become bigger, better and bolder versions of yourself. Right, so Sunday, 23rd of April, started with Vive la France. This was where Macron beat Marine Le Pen in the general election in France, and there are many mixed opinions on that. It seems like the division is even more so, with it's almost 50-50 in the States, and Macron got 58% of the votes, which is a narrow version of a victory compared to the previous one when he was elected the first time. The basic instinct debacle with which accused Deputy Leader Angela Rayner of crossing and uncrossing her legs to distract the Prime Minister actually then moved on to a whole host of accusations, and investigation is now taking place into the Houses of Parliament and the behaviour of various MPs and people linked. This is interesting, and really, in my opinion, nobody should be treated any differently than anyone else, and really we should all be treated equally. And to say that the Deputy Leader, Angela Rayner, was uncrossing and crossing her legs to distract the Prime Minister is interesting, to say the least. And I'd like to know what your opinion is on that. And moving on to the week that was again, then confidence in the economy is at an all-time low, 25% lower than after the last crash in 2008, so say statisticians. And this may result with some unrest over the coming years. Now, midweek saw the sad loss of a veteran comrade, a veteran who served with the Marines, and he was over in the Ukraine, together with another comrade of his who was also lost. This is a sad indictment on Russia and the way they are continuing to oppress Ukraine, and our guys who've gone across to help, as have many others. And in fact, it's estimated that there are up to 20,000 supporters from different parts of the globe that have gone across to help Ukraine. So hats off to those guys. And the Scott Sibley, who was a former Marine, took his continued belief in what is right in the world and what should be done to oppress, to actually stop oppressors like Russia bullying countries like Ukraine. And then to top that, round about the same time, Gazprom, the Russian energy giant, turned off the supply of gas to Bulgaria and Poland. I mean, how low can Putin go? So now, with Russia being a pariah state, I think that this could have massive ramifications in the future, because what's happened is this has brought on changes in Europe and the Western economy to make sure that they don't need to be so dependent on Russia for their supply of gas. Which means, effectively, when all the changes are made, and we only buy 8% of our gas from Russia, and so we probably won't be affected as much as, say, Germany, for instance. But I do know now massive changes are being made in the European economy, so they become a lot less dependent on Russia, which will mean, of course, that is one of the main incomes for Russia, oil and gas. And with us actually going to electric vehicles and many other self-sustaining power sources in the UK and the changes in Europe as well, then they will lose a massive income. So my projection is, in the future sometime, then there's a good chance that Russia will see serious economic problems, apart from the fact that the way the economic sanctions we have put on them. What I have been found interesting and enlightening is, at first, when the Ukrainian conflict started with Russia invading their country, the support from us was pretty slow. But then as things have moved on, and it was recognised that this wasn't going to be over just in a few days, which I'm sure Putin and the Russian commanders thought that was going to be the case, then we also started to supply drones, and the Americans came in, and now it looks like they finally realised, the world has finally realised that Ukraine have made the strong stuff, plus the fact that all our guys that have gone across to support them and other veterans from around the world, then this could be, I'm not underestimating the sad loss and the way that cities are being levelled by the Russians, but the fact is that the fighting power and the resolve of the Ukrainians to remain in charge of their country is absolutely phenomenal. And now we have finally said and decided to give even more supplies with heavy armaments to push the Russians back out of Ukraine. And there is some talk now that it could actually go further than that and reclaim other parts of what was the Ukraine back from the Russians, which is fabulous news. And of course, the Americans have now announced that £36 billion or thereabouts will be put to the availability of Ukraine, so they can rebuild their economy, and then also provide them with money to supply additional armaments. Some good news on the electric vehicle front is Ford have released the F-180, and they've introduced that. It's an electric vehicle, and it's the most popular pickup truck that they have in the fuel version, in the petrol and diesel, but now they've released it in the electric version, and they're looking to take Tesla on by storm, and have already had many orders. So it's interesting now to see that electric vehicles are really coming to the front, and Tesla are being taken on and going head to head with them. Going back to the economy, the World Bank is concerned that on Wednesday the stock markets fell because of worry about the information that was coming out on the forecasters. Now the thing is that there's been changes in the gas prices midweek as well. In the UK, our gas prices started to fall, even though in Europe they went up because of Gazprom announcement. The fact is that GDP, our gross domestic product, is in negative territory. Interestingly enough, Amazon lost £1.8 billion to the business pandemic, and over £6 billion to the Rivian EV company. And the thing is that this has caused their stocks to go down by 1.8 billion. As I said, they've lost that. But actually, they're still doing reasonably well, and it was the Rivian loss of 6 billion that took their profits down. interestingly enough, Apple was profitable, yet their shares dropped by 3%. And this is based on financial projections. Now, isn't it interesting that all the projections now and the forecasters are projecting negativity, and they don't know yet because it's only a forecast. Profits were up with Apple, they actually increased their profits. So what I'm saying, things are tough. What I'm saying though is that look at things in a different light. There's no need to think that the whole world is ended, because in my opinion, that's not the case. I do think that we're going to have some challenges, and I do think also that there's challenges with our energy, i.e. our fuel for cars, our electricity and gas prices. We've got challenges, but if you stay tuned at the end, where I'm giving some wealth tips, then I'm going to be showing you how you could save money, and a significant amount of money, on your electric bills. And finally, with Europe, Russia and China in lockdowns, especially China, the inflation could cause a global recession, right? Because China are taking some drastic steps, drastic measures, and that's probably caused by the fact that they seem to have dealt with the pandemic by implementing lockdowns rather than widespread vaccinations. And still only in this week there was still only 38% of the elderly population that were vaccinated, which meant that now they've gone into lockdown, there are people who are standing on the balconies of the apartments and cannot leave, and they actually want food. So this could have an inflationary effect. The fact is though, overall, the week that has been extremely interesting, challenging, and I think that there's better things to come in the future. So stay tuned for the next episode, where I am going to be giving you some different news and seeing how the things change throughout the year. Because what I do know is that I've taken notes over the last 2 years of the pandemic, and I've seen how opinions, attitudes, behaviours have changed. And I do believe that we'll come through this just the same as we came through the 1987, 1991, 1997, 2000, 2001 and 2008. It is a period of time that we're going through. I'm old enough now and daft enough to have seen a few of the peaks and troughs, challenges and opportunities. So stay tuned, and my job is to keep you informed to help bring you through to the other side. And we'll be moving on to Standing on the Shoulder of Giants next with another guest, and I'm really looking forward to that. Thank you. Bye. Hello and welcome to another episode of Standing on the Shoulder of Giants. And as you know, this series is set to interview veterans in business, or those that support veterans who are really great at what they do. And this guy is way ahead of his years on what he does, and he really helps me get the message out there to you. And without further ado, Aidan Campbell of Hawks Media, just tell me a little bit of what brought you to where you are now.
Yeah, so my name's Aidan, the business is Hawks Branding, and I kind of fell into setting a business up, which sounds strange to some people, but throughout school and college I didn't really focus on my grades. I was more playing rugby. Right. There was two subjects that I really sort of fell in love with, one of them obviously being sport and the other one being psychology. Right. And learning the mindset around why people play sports and the mindset of people more than anything. And from there I then was lucky enough to be offered to go and play rugby down in Somerset with an academy. And the ruling was, you play rugby, you go to university. Right, okay. Keep your good grades, you get to play rugby.
So there's an incentive
yeah,
there.
So
okay.
For the first time in my life I had an incentive to actually listen in an educational environment. So I chose to study sports business.
Yeah.
And that came about because I was working in finance at the time when I left college, and when I told them, they turned around and said, piece of advice, if you can, study something to do with business.
Yeah.
Because I worked really well with them. They liked me, which was always a good thing, and I liked them, and I learned a bit about running a business and what it's like within a business environment. So this, instead of anything, study business. So I chose to study sports business. And then about halfway through my second year, we had a project that was to set up a business, and we pitch it to the rest of the course, and we'd set up this business plan and marketing plan and all that sort of stuff on how we get this business idea out there.
Right, okay.
And I chose to set mine up in social media marketing because, again, the psychology behind marketing and why people buy from the companies they buy from always seemed to interest me whilst I was studying sports business at uni.
Right.
So I chose to do social media marketing. And an old contact of mine that I'd known for many years, I reached out to him and said, have you got any advice on the uni project? So he told me to go to a networking event with him and just speak to people and ask them, and they'll be more than happy to help. So I'd gone to a few networking events, and a few weeks had gone by and I had a phone call off one of the people I'd been speaking to. We want to pay you for what you do. We want to pay you to look after our social media.
Ah, right, interesting, yeah.
And I was like, it's not a business, it's a uni project. I was a bit taken back. I was like, I don't have any pricing packages, I don't have any processes, it's just a business uni project. And they said, we'd be more than happy to help you organise some packages, some prices, some processes, and all the other bits and bobs. And I actually went and sat down with my uni tutor and I said, what do? I don't want to try and set up a business and do university because they'll end up both failing. So she suggested, she turned around and said, you can always come back to university if the business doesn't work. You can't always go back and set the business up.
Okay.
So 6 months before the pandemic, I left university and set up a business.
Great timing, absolutely brilliant timing.
And then, it's just sort of, it grew from there. So it was very rushed within the first 6 months because it was just a uni project that a couple of people or a couple of businesses had started paying me for. And it did just start off as social media management. Then it sort of grew into them wanting me to create some graphic design work for them, for their social media, help them design their website. So I started to bring other people in that could do all the design work on that. And then it grew from that to them wanting me to help them market it. So again, I brought more people in, like SEO experts and pay-per-click experts, to just help market the brand that we built and designed as well. And then the lockdown happened.
Right.
Instead of twiddling my thumbs during lockdown, I networked like crazy. I must have been doing 3 or 4 calls a day, networking calls a day. Obviously, the Transformer Business Network. I'm on another networking platform called Meow that's 24/7, so I was doing a couple of them a day. And obviously I joined you on the Transformer Mastermind as well, so I was doing everything I could. I couldn't trade, I wasn't making any money, but I was doing everything else I could to make sure that when we came out at the end of this, I had contacts, I had the training, I had everything that I probably should have done 6 months before the pandemic. But I kind of just...
And that's just the way it happens sometimes, so thank you. And that's what's got you to here now, with clients and successes. And I'm pleased that you mentioned the mastermind, because I know that's how we really develop the relationship, and I've helped you grow your business exponentially. So, even though, what I find interesting is, even though you've not served in the military, your transition from university to business, i.e. not knowing anything about business really, because I'm reading it in a book and studying it in front of a tutor and then telling you and maybe putting on a whiteboard isn't always the same as actually doing it, is it?
No.
So the reason I invited you here today, because I love your story, it's also because one of the reasons, or the main reason that I created this podcast is to help veterans or people who are leaving the military or veteran business owners to become bigger, better and bolder versions of themselves. And the fact is the transition from the military to City Street is also littered with issues, challenges, problems that can prevent you from doing stuff. And that's why I wanted to go into some of the questions that I've got for you, because I'm sure that you, as you're listening, will find this useful. So, what was your biggest challenge, do you think, on that process?
So for me, it was my age.
Right, okay. How does that work then?
When I first set the business up, I was 22, 23.
Okay, yeah.
And probably, 20 or 21 going on 22 when I first set the business up. And people seemed, trying to think of the right word now, not threatened, but they were unsure of using somebody so young.
Yeah.
They wanted people that had experience in business, and one of the things that always confused me is that I remember speaking to one company and they were like, we want somebody who's got 20, 30 years experience in marketing, and I was like, but social media has only been around for 15 or so years.
Yeah.
So for me the biggest challenge was finding people that my age was bothered. And I've found them people like yourself, like other clients that I work with, and to be honest, I'd choose a million of you guys every day over the one person who wants to pay me the big bucks, but they don't want me to be 23, 24.
Yeah, thank you for pointing out that I don't pay you any big bucks. I do actually, but thank you. Well, interesting though, that, because I remember being told once that, and when I first started, because when I started as a finance advisor, right, I was 25 to 26 when I left the regs, then I rejoined the Terrace Royals. When I left the army just after the stock market crash in '87, which wasn't the greatest time to be a finance advisor. Right? So, similar to you, I suppose, there were challenges there. And the thing was that what I rapidly found, that some of the financial, because I used to go to these big events that the likes of General Accident, who aren't around anymore, used to put on, and Allied Dunbar, who aren't around anymore, and also Legal & General, Norwich Union, who are now Aviva. And some of the finance advisors I was brushing shoulders with, they've been in the industry, as it was then, it's a profession now, for 20, 30 years. And when I got this talking with them, because remember I was a new kid on the block, so I was learning new stuff. And what I discovered is some of these guys had 1 year's experience 20 times.
Yeah.
Rather than 20 years experience, if that makes sense. And when I met you, that's why I thought, wow, social media, do I want someone who's 60 or do I want someone who's 20?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, it's not rocket science, is it? Because social media, and it's changing all the time. If you look at TikTok, and I mean, flipping it, Twitter's with the interesting one with Elon Musk, that's having a bit of a challenge now.
Yeah.
So they all come and go.
It's funny you mentioned TikTok, because that wasn't even around when I set the business up.
No, I know. So it's about moving with it, isn't it? So, what's the secret to your success then?
So there's a few standout moments for me. The first standout moment is when I was playing rugby at a younger age. I remember the coach asking, who do you want to be like? And a lot of the lads always, said, I want to be the next Johnny Wilkinson, the next Mike Tyndall, the next whoever, next big England rugby player, that's what we all said. And the coach turned around and replied with, don't be the next whoever, be the first you.
Yeah, oh wow.
And that's one thing that's always stuck with me. So even though I have coaches like yourself, and I watch a lot of entrepreneurs like Elon Musk and Gary Vaynerchuk on the internet and really take in what they're saying, I want to get to that level, but I don't want to be the next Joe O'Connor. I don't want to be the next Gary Vaynerchuk. I want to be the first Aidan Campbell.
Yeah, great.
That's one of the sort of first things that sort of stuck with me.
What a great coach.
Yeah.
What a great guy.
And then again, the next bit would be the uni tutor that said, you can always come back to uni if the business doesn't work. You can't go back and set the business up. So if she had never said that, I probably wouldn't be sat here today. I'd still been, having university fees dropped on my head. And then since setting the business up, I think one of the biggest reasons or secrets to success I've had is the mastermind and other training courses that I've been on.
Right, okay.
Because, again, I came into business not knowing a single thing about business apart from what was in textbooks.
And I'm interested because the secret to your success as well is the fact that you're a grafter. Because and it's great that it's how you process the information that you've been given. Being told be the best version of yourself or be the next you. And that you can come back to uni because you have to process that, and you could have decided not to set the business up. And when I offered you a place on the mastermind, you could have thought, "Oh, no, it's all right, I'll crack on." So, what was it about the mastermind that helped you so much then?
So, for me, with the mastermind, it was a lot of the stuff that you were talking about were things that had briefly been touched over in university, but not in depth. It was more than just the theory side of things, but it was the reinforcement of doing these steps, not just every year or every month, but day in, day out, having these steps in place that you can implement, and just being able to reinforce them steps. And there's things in business I was like, oh yeah, I need to do that, and then I'd forget about it, and then on the next mastermind it'd be like, oh, I've not done that, I need to get that done. And it was just having the sort of support group there. And
it got you into a habit then, didn't it? Because you knew that you had accountability. And if you came back and said, no, I haven't done it, well then it was you were going to get a slap on the wrist, but I mean, you slap yourself on the wrist, wouldn't you?
Yeah, exactly. And one of the other sort of secrets to my success was probably coming from the sporting background, is knowing how hard you've got to work behind the scenes for it to look successful in the cameras and in front of everyone else. And with the mastermind, that was just, again, it was like going to Thursday night training. That's what the mastermind was to me in comparison to sport. If I wanted to have a successful business, like I want to be a successful rugby player, I need to do the training, and for me that's what the mastermind was. And again, having that team of people there, it could be like, oh, come on Aidan, you're slacking a little bit, pick yourself up.
Good.
Yeah, that's what sort of kept driving me.
Excellent. And here's the thing, because I'm always interested to see how many motivational speakers there are motivating people who don't know what they're doing. Right? Because I've got a big thing about this. Because I believe that you've got to inspire people to educate themselves in a particular area, not about everything, just about what they want to specialise. Then once they know, then you motivate them to get a job done. And talking about that, because you're motivated, and it might seem to you, when you're listening, that everything's hunky-dory and there's no problems, there's no issues, there's no challenges, everything just goes great. When your feet touch the floor, when you get out of bed in the morning, nothing goes wrong, does it? Well, actually, I know it does. So how do you deal with failure?
So for me, I prefer failure over success because I can learn from it.
How come?
So
you learn, right?
Yeah, one of again going back to rugby as an example, I could make 100 tackles in a game and miss one, but I'd focus on why I've missed that one and why what did I do differently in that one that I missed compared to the other 100 that I made, so that I can look at what I did wrong and fix it. So whenever something goes wrong, whether I lose a potential client or I make a mistake in business, I always look at what I did wrong. I could lose this potential client but get another 5. Well, how did I lose that one potential client? What did I do differently with them that I didn't do with the other 5 that I got? And a lot of the time it comes back to actually this sign, standing on the shoulder of giants. I don't know all the answers. I don't know why I lost a client. I don't know why I made this mistake. So it's just being able to pick up the phone to the likes of yourself or other people that I work with on a regular basis and just say, what did I do wrong here? Here's the scenario, here's what happened, what did I do wrong? And then being able to learn from that. So for me, when I'm faced with a failure, I go out of my way to find out how I could fix it or what I could do differently next time.
And that's great, because it's as if you led into that, queuing up for the next question, right? Because and the question is, right, how important is it, and what benefits do you receive from having a good coach or mentor?
The benefits are unbelievable. You know, one of the biggest benefits is being able to pick up the phone and ring you and go, Joe, I've messed up, this is what's happened, how do I fix it? Or what, you know, that particular scenario might not be able to be fixed, but what can I do so that next time it doesn't happen again? And that, to me, has just always been the sort of the top of my list when it comes to a coach, someone who I can ring up and go, I've had this problem, what do I do to fix it? And it's been the same in rugby. If I ever miss the tackle or don't turn up to training, or something goes wrong, I can always say to my coach, what do I do to fix it? How do I make sure I don't make that mistake again?
Yeah.
And then being able for the coach to sit down with you and go through it with you is just it helps so much. There's so much benefits from having a coach that you can, you're not afraid to go and say, put your hand up and say, yeah, I've made this mistake, what do I do?
That's brilliant. And it comes through, I love the question that you ask yourself and the coaches, what can I do to improve it, and what caused it to go not so well. So the other thing now is, I'm passionate, well, we're both passionate about helping veterans to get from where they are now to where they want to be. And so what's the one thing or the one big tip you could give to a veteran who's already left the army, or someone who's transitioning from the military to Civvy Street, or someone who wants to support veterans? What's the one big tip you could give them to achieve the success, even when they're having a big challenge?
Biggest tip I can give them is just ask. If you're unsure about anything, ask somebody. If that person doesn't know, ask them if they can help you find somebody who does know.
That's great.
If you've got questions, like you say, somebody coming out of the military, they might not know where to even start looking for a job, just ask around.
Yeah.
So that's the best bit of advice I can give. That's what I did with my business. Anything I was unsure of, I just asked.
Brilliant. And talking about asking, right, because I know that you've got, you brought along with you some top tips. And by the way, guys, that's ladies and gents. So when you hear me say guys, right, just to be clear, you've got some tips with you. How could people get in touch with you if they wanted to get in touch? What would be the best way? Come through me, or?
So they can either speak to you and be put through to me that way, or I'm happy for you to give out my contact details.
What's your email?
So my email is aidan.campbell@hawksbranding.com.
Right, okay.
And I know how good Alex is. You can do some fancy stuff there and make it pop up on the screen if you want.
Right, okay. Yeah, so that's right. So you can edit that now, okay, and then back in. And the other thing, do you want to just give us a few tips? Because when you get in touch with Aidan, he can send you a document, a top tips report. So just give me your one thing out of there that you would say ranks, because I know there's quite a few tips.
Yeah, I mean, it's difficult for me to just pick one. There's two that I always
go on, then I'll give you two.
Go say to people to do. So the first one is to become the go-to person.
Right, okay.
So no matter what it is, somebody comes to you, Joe, and says, do you know a mechanic?
Right.
Instead of you just going, yeah, there's a concept, you can go, yeah, I can speak to him for you. Or even if you don't know a mechanic, you go and find one for that person.
Yeah.
Always become that go-to person to help that person out. You're not going to get the money off them there and then, but eventually when they need what you do, they'll come to you and go, Joe, do you know a business coach? Or do you know a financial advisor? And straight away, I am.
Yeah.
And because you've helped them in the past, it makes that transaction so much easier for them to go, let's work together then.
Okay.
So that's the first one, become that go-to person. And the second one is, and it's the last one on this list, is don't ever stop. The moment you stop with your marketing, the moment you stop speaking to people, the moment you stop doing any of these other 9 things, you lose all momentum.
That's great. Thank you so much. Well, listen, it's been an absolute pleasure speaking with you. I know you have minor information on what you do, and I look forward to speaking to you again, and we'll continue to work long into the future. Thank you so much. You take care. Have a great day. So, stand on the shoulder of the giants. So the next one will be coming up shortly. Very shortly, I'll be getting another guest, but take on board what Aidan said. And I know we've rushed through a lot of stuff there, so replay it, rewind it, replay it, listen to it, rinse and repeat, wash, rinse and repeat, and so long as you keep going and you never give up, then you'll be successful. So until the next time, have a brilliant day. Thank you. And what a great session on standing on the shoulder of giants that was. So now we come to the next part of the podcast, which looks at wealth, health and mindset tips. And what I do is I spend my time trawling back through these things that I've learned in the past, and also looking on some of the later stuff that's going on. And what I like to look at, especially now, because I did say earlier in the podcast that I'd be looking at ways to save money. Well, looking at the wealth section, what I can say is, I can inform you, I've done some research and I've found out that £2.1 billion in the UK is wasted per year on electricity usage. And how's this? I mean, that's a phenomenal amount of money, £2.1 billion. And how is this done? Well, recent surveys showed that statistically, up to £170 per household, for instance, is wasted on electricity usage, and that's astounding. So how useful would it be for you to learn about how you could save up to £170 per year on your electricity bill? That'd be pretty good, and I was really enthusiastic to find out how to. So what they looked at is, for instance, leaving your television on standby. Now, I don't know how many TVs you've got in your home. You may have one, you may have two, you may have more than two. The fact is that on average, leaving your TV on standby can cost as much as £50 per annum. So taking that one extra movement before you go to bed or before you go out, just turn the switch off at the wall or the power supply that it's plugged into. Now, if you're anything like me, to get to the plug that controls our TV, although I don't watch all that much TV, but we do have a TV, and to get to the socket is really difficult because it's right down the back. I don't know what yours is like, but it's right down the back and you have to really reach down, and in fact you can't do it without lying flat on your tummy. So what you could do is put an extension cable with a plug that makes it easier for you to turn it off. And guess what? You've probably got kitchen appliances too. And I'm not suggesting that you turn your fridge off by any means, because that wouldn't be too good for the food inside. You may have a microwave oven though, and leaving your microwave on can waste up to £25 per year, and maybe more depending on what size it is. So by switching off your electricity supply on appliances that go on standby could be really useful. I mean, you've got other things like computers and all sorts of gaming machines possibly, so just turn them off and you could save up to £170 per year on your electricity bill. Now, I don't know your financial circumstances, and you may need to take professional advice, but what I can say is £170 in your pocket is probably better spent than in the energy supplier's pocket. So that's my top tip on wealth today. The next is health. Right, now I was really interested to find this out because I hadn't appreciated just how important eating or drinking this next product is. Because scientists have proven that eating beetroot or drinking the beet juice can really improve your health. For instance, back in the build-up to the Olympics, you could not, and in London, you could not buy beetroot or beet juice anywhere for love nor money. And that was because it's been proven that it can improve the performance of athletes exponentially. In fact, about 16% endurance it can produce, it can improve by, which is a phenomenal amount. And how does it work? Well, you see, if you drink the beetroot juice or eat the beetroot, and about 3 beetroots per day is the accepted optimum. Now, it can improve the cognition, it reduces blood pressure, and the carotenoids held within it are strong antioxidants, which can improve a variety of conditions, like anemia, for instance. It's also rich in nitrate. Why is that important? Well, you have bacteria in your mouth, right? And that bacteria converts to nitric oxide, which is a vasodilator and improves the width of the blood vessels, so it makes them bigger, effectively. And that improves circulation, which of course can improve and reduce the heart attacks, stroke, and better still, a better format to have it as well, is because if you're going to cook it, then boil it in a bag because it maintains the nutrient and all the goodness in it, and then you eat it warm. You can also roast it. Roasting it, though, loses some of the qualities of the beetroot. And finally, it can also improve your muscle efficiency, which, going back to the athletes, 16% of athletes use it during the Olympics, and it attributes to greater performance. And there is a known side effect which you do not need to become too concerned about, because there's no known health effects, but it does turn your urine to pink. And one last thing, it does improve body performances which are linked to blood flow. So that's my top health tip today, and I do hope you found that useful. And finally, going on to mindset. Right, well, staying on the theme of beetroot, right? The beetroot properties can also improve the prefrontal cortex in the brain, which is where a lot of the brain power happens. So what this does is it controls all sorts of functionality of the brain. So overall, then, it's a really good item to have on your diet, and in fact on your nutrition plan. So look seriously at beetroot. 3 beetroot a day, or the beet juice, drink and have a drink regularly, once in the morning and once in the evening, can really improve your performance and help your health get even better. And better still, it also improves the way your mind works as well. And there was a recent research done on a nurse who worked in London, and she found that it helped her when she went to the gym. She got better performance, better endurance, and it also helped her stay alert, stay awake on her night duties, the night shift. So all in all, what a great thing. And next episode, I'll be looking again at the wealth, health and mindset tips. So until then, on our next edition of Pull Up A Sandbag with Joe, you have a brilliant day, and I'll see you shortly. Thank you.